In 1816, summer never came. The air was cold, crops refused to grow, and the sun itself looked sick. Across the northern hemisphere, people stood under grey skies that never cleared, waiting for warmth that never arrived. They called it the year without a summer. And to those who lived through it, it felt like the end of the world. It began a year earlier, on April 10, 1815, when Mount Tambora, a massive volcano in the Dutch East Indies, erupted with unimaginable force. It was the largest eruption in recorded human history. The explosion was heard more than 2,000 kilometers away. The top of the mountain, nearly 4,000 meters high, was literally blown off. An estimated 160 cubic kilometers of rock, ash, and gas were thrown into the sky. It was the invisible cloud of ash and sulfur dioxide that climbed 40 kilometers into the stratosphere, a shroud that would circle the planet and poison the sky. Within weeks, the sun dimmed. The ash reflected sunlight back into space, lowering global temperatures. Within months, weather patterns collapsed. Within a year, humanity was starving. Snow fell in New England, even in July. Lakes froze solid in Pennsylvania. The sun, when it did appear, glowed a faint copper color, filtered through volcanic haze. People said it looked like blood. In the United States, desperate farmers abandoned New England altogether, heading west in search of land that could still grow food. Entire communities vanished overnight, leaving behind ghost towns. This sudden migration reshaped America's population map and even helped settle what would become the Midwest. But for those who stayed, it was a slow-motion apocalypse. Livestock froze in their barns, corn rotted before it ripened, wheat shriveled before it could be harvested, prices for basic food skyrocketed. A bushel of oats, crucial for feeding horses, the engines of transport, rose from 12 cents to over 90. Families who couldn't afford food resorted to boiling weeds and eating vermin. Europe was worse. Still reeling from the Napoleonic Wars, the continent was already fragile. When Tambora's shadow reached the skies above Europe, it pushed millions closer to collapse. In France, Germany, and Switzerland, the summer months brought nothing but relentless rain and frost. Rivers overflowed, crops drowned, and when the rain finally stopped, the fields were barren. Food prices doubled, then tripled. Starvation riots broke out from Ireland to Poland. Bread riots became so common that governments sent soldiers to guard bakeries. In Switzerland, villagers ground up acorns and tree bark to make flour. In Ireland, another wave of famine arrived decades before the Great Hunger ever began. By late 1816, the famine spread through Asia as well. In China, unusual snowstorms blanketed the Yangtze River basin. Harvests failed, leading to one of the worst famines of the Qing dynasty. In India, the monsoon collapsed entirely, sparking a massive cholera outbreak that would eventually spread across continents, killing millions in the following decades. All of it traced back to one volcano, to one eruption on a small island people in Europe had never even heard of. And yet in the middle of this chaos, human creativity was burning quietly in the dark. In Geneva, Switzerland, where rain and gloom never seemed to end, a small group of young writers gathered to escape the cold. They were trapped inside a villa by the endless storms, surrounded by the stillness of a world without sunlight. Among them were Lord Byron, Percy Shelley, and Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin, soon to be Mary Shelley. With nothing to do but talk, they began a game. Each would write a ghost story. One stormy night, Mary Shelley dreamt of a scientist who tried to conquer death and created a monster instead. From that darkness was born Frankenstein, one of the most influential stories in human history. The weather itself had inspired a meditation on power, creation, and the hubris of man. the same themes playing out across the world as nature reminded humanity of its limits. Even art changed. Painters like J.M.W. Turner began depicting skies of unreal color, fiery reds, deep oranges, eerie yellows, caused by the ash-filtered sunlight. Caspar David Friedrich's paintings, those lonely silhouettes under blood-orange horizons, captured the melancholy of the era perfectly. Most didn't realize it then, but the strange beauty of that decade-s art, the glow of its sunsets, came directly from volcanic dust. Nature's destruction had painted the world in fire. By 1817, the world began to recover. The ash finally started to settle. Temperatures rose slowly, crops returned, though the scars remained. The famine had killed hundreds of thousands across Europe and Asia. Economies had been crippled. In Ireland and Germany, the trauma would fuel a century of emigration, reshaping populations around the world. But beyond the death and hunger, the year, without a summer, changed how humanity understood its place in the world. For centuries, people had believed they could bend nature to their will, with industry, with conquest, with faith. But when the sky went dark, all illusions of control vanished. It became clear that civilization was just a thin layer, easily stripped away by forces beyond comprehension. The Tambora eruption was more than a natural disaster. It was a global mirror, showing humanity its vulnerability. It taught scientists to start studying the climate as a system. It led to the first global weather observations and one of the earliest records of how the environment connects us all. Even now, climate scientists look back to Tambora as a warning, a glimpse of what sudden climate change can do to societies unprepared for it. Imagine a world where the sun is dim, harvests fail, and nations turn desperate. That world already existed once, not in myth, but in 1816. It was a year when art, science, and civilization all collided with the raw power of the earth. A year when the air turned cold, the sky went dark, and humanity learned what happens when nature reminds us that we are guests on this planet, not its masters. The world nearly froze, and yet, from that silence, something beautiful emerged. Stories, art, migration, resilience. Even in darkness, humans found a way to keep creating. Because the year without a summer wasn't just about the death of warmth. It was about the fire that refused to die.